What's up, agency owners? Jason Swenk here with another episode of the Smart Agency Masterclass, a podcast for the digital agency owner that wants to scale faster, create an asset rather than an agency burden. And on today's episode, I have a great guest who runs a really successful agency in Nashville, and they've done something pretty unique and disruptive. And I know this is not the newest thing, but they've created an incubator where they actually take ownership rather than having people pay. And I think it's a really great episode for all of you to think about what are other ways we can help out your community and also build more assets in your agency. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Hey, Laura, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you. So briefly tell us who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, so my name's Laura. I run FlyteVu agency. We're an entertainment marketing agency that helps brands connect to consumers via pop culture and purpose. That looks very different to every different client, but a few examples, everything from music events, integrations into award shows, media properties, influencers, endorsement deals, Super Bowl commercials, events, productions. It runs the gamut now, recently gaming. So always something new. But keeping up with pop culture and trying to stay at the forefront.
Well, I have a hard time keeping up with pop culture. I'm just getting old, and I listen to the radio with my kids love, and I'm like, oh, this music is horrible, and I'm like, oh my god, I turned into my dad, which is kind of funny. Yeah. So that's probably why I don't run your agency. But how did you?
We have a lot of folks who keep up with trends for me. So you're right. I am not in the target demo anymore. So I have a lot of folks who are that work with me.
Very cool. So how did you start the agency? Was this by accident or did you have grando visions and you wanted to create it?
Starting the agency was not by accident, but probably where we ended up was much different from the vision when we started. I was working for a talent agency, CAA. A lot of people have heard of them. I was on the talent side, brokering deals between talent, so celebrities and big corporate brands. A lot of the brands were asking me to come work for them as they were starting to spend more in entertainment, more in influencers, understanding they had to be relevant with the younger consumer, and didn't really know how to navigate that. So instead of taking a position at a corporate job, which as an entrepreneur and a builder, I knew that wouldn't last long. I decided I would start an agency or start a company and take on as many clients as I could and help them navigate the space in a way that makes sense for them. And so that's how the agency started. Also at the time, I loved my job. I loved the work, but I had lost the purpose and the why in, all of these dollars were being exchanged with people that had a lot of money already. And I wanted there to be a bigger reason behind that. And so the unique perspective that our agency has is that every program that we create actually has a purpose. There's a give back element. There's something we're changing in culture. There's a movement that we're starting. We're helping people or fans or consumers in some way. So that gives us all, meaning the talent, my client, and my team, a purpose in what we're doing.
How long did you run the agency before you had that kind of shift and that vision? Like how long were you kind of accidentally going through and taking on everything?
If you're referring to purpose, that was actually at the very beginning. We started with that. It was really important to me because I didn't have that in my previous corporate job. And so that's where we started. And I have a co-founder. So when we started kind of putting together a P&L and figuring out how this could all work, we agreed that 20% of everything that we make would go to charity. And so now those numbers are pretty significant. So we have what we call the FlyteVu fund. Those dollars go into the fund. Our team can access those. Even our vendors or clients sometimes request those dollars. And so we give those grants away every year. And to date, we've surpassed over $1 million, which is great. Which was a dream come true. My goal is to get to $1 million every year. So we're working on it. Very
cool. Well, let's talk about what was the reason behind creating the incubator? Because I think that's an interesting, as an agency, especially in the first agency, I had people all the time coming to me with great ideas, but they had no money. And they'd be like, it was kind of like, I always did a funny video with Darth Vader. And he comes to me, he goes, Jason, I want to create Facebook, YouTube, and Google all put together to create this amazing Darth Star, but I have no money. I want you to take equity. And I'd be like, no, Darth Vader, go away. And so some deals I would take on, and they always failed. And the one that got away from me, I was telling you in the pre-show, was Elf on the Shelf, which always haunts me every holiday season when I see all that stuff. So what was the reason why you did the incubator? How's it been going? And what works about it that you really love?
There's two reasons that we started the incubator. One is because one of our first clients at the agency when we started 8 years ago was Bumble. Started working with that brand when it was just 5 women in an apartment building building an app. And so at the time, our agency was new, so we were only 5 people. And so we were building an agency, and quite frankly, it was a mutually beneficial partnership. Yes, they paid us agency fees, but we helped grow that brand from startup, literal startup, to IPO. We all know how that ended in $1 billion IPO. I didn't have equity in that brand, and nor did I even know to ask for it, or was I in a position at that time, because we were just a startup agency that no one really believed in at the time, right? So with that ride, we earned a lot of credibility. So I'm super thankful. But I learned the process. I learned what a brand like that needs. I learned that we could provide it, and in the future, I would want to then be able to take equity in those opportunities. And we're at a size now where we do have some hours and some staff that we could dedicate to that, without taking pay. We weren't in a position 8 years ago to do that. So that was one reason. Second reason I wanted to start the incubator is because as a young female executive kind of coming up in entertainment, my bosses were always talking about these big investment deals. And the time we're based in Nashville, Nashville was exploding. They had, exponential growth. They were investing in restaurants and buildings. And I remember asking, what's the buy-in? Maybe I could get in. And they said 100,000 minimum. And well, I was making 26,000 a year. So that was not going to happen for me. And so I just thought investing out of, not for me, will never be for me. No one ever taught me that there's angel investing, or there's, it's not minimum 100,000 for everything. There's other ways, there's advisory shares, there's other ways to invest in businesses. So I wanted to teach my young staff and give my young staff an opportunity, or give them opportunities I never had. So part of the incubator is when a brand comes in as an incubator client, yes, we work in exchange for equity, but they also offer investment opportunities at very low levels to my staff that they can afford. So my staff is able to invest in the brands that they're working on. And if you can then assume that they're going to work a lot harder for the
They're going
brands.
to definitely work a lot harder.
Ownership in, right? So it's mutually beneficial for all. And I'm teaching these mostly young women on my team, about investing and how to create exponential wealth and growth. And it's not just putting your money in a savings account. That's great, but that's not really how you accumulate wealth. And so I'm super excited that's the most exciting for me, is to bring those opportunities to my employees and my team, that the opportunities I never had.
How do you, because everything sounds amazing. And I really like that the team invests their own money in some of these, or have the opportunity at a low cost. So I want to know more about that. But I also want to know, what's the criteria? Because people listening are going, well, great. Like, I'm going to do this for everyone. And then I'm like, well, you're not going to have an agency long, because you're not going to be able to afford to pay people. So walk me through the criteria that worked for you. And then what's the percentage of your business that's dedicated to the incubator? Because you can't do 100% of it.
Yeah. So we only took on one incubator client in our first year. And that's what my recommendation would be for anyone to start, like figure out how that works within your system before you start taking on numerous, because they always say the smallest clients take the most amount of resources. And so this is a small client. They're new. They've never worked with an agency. They need more hand holding. So, you have to take that into consideration. How we determine who we take on is it has to be a mission-driven brand. Bumble was mission-driven. A lot of our clients at the agency are mission-driven, but specifically for the incubator, it's got to be something we believe in. Our first incubator brand is a brand called Kitty and Vibe. They're a swimsuit brand that goes up to size 6XL, which is the largest in any swimwear company. They don't Photoshop their images. They believe in, kindness and positive body image, and that really spoke to a lot of the young women on my team who have dealt with body image issues. I had an eating disorder when I was young, and actually the young woman who is leading the account for me also suffered from an eating disorder, and so this was a brand that really meant a lot to her. So I would say when choosing a client that you're investing your time in and energy in, make sure it's something that resonates deep, because you're at the end of this, if it doesn't work out or it fails, like you said, like nothing comes of it, at least you know that you were working on something that put good energy into the world, that meant something to you, and there's return on that investment if there is no return on the cash. And so that would be my recommendation, but also our criteria for who we choose to work with.
Also, how do you put a cap on what you're like you were saying?
Sure.
The smallest companies require the most work. So how do you kind of rein them back in going, whoa, like.
Yeah, perfect. Good question. So we actually have a scope like we would for our typical agency clients. There is a dollar figure attached to that, which is the equivalent to the equity that we receive in the company. So that then determines the hours that we spend on it. Just like a typical scope would be, if someone's giving you $100,000, you would put hours to that, and that's the work that you do for them. So we manage that scope in the same way. We track hours. We give hourly reports every month. There's just a bit more flexibility in those scopes, because as a startup, you don't know what you don't know yet or what you're going to run into. So, we offer a lot of services at the agency. They can leverage those hours across any department at the agency for whatever they need in the moment, but they are capped on the number of hours. So that's how we manage it.
I'm glad you answered that, because there's be some people be like, oh, I got to go do all this, and I'm sure you probably even thought of this as well, of going, well, if they do need more, well, we can ask for more equity or have an option for that, rather than just taking it on the chin.
Yeah. Well, here's the goal. And also when I'm kind of interviewing incubator clients, I always ask, when is their next raise? Right. So an incubator would be a good fit for us if they're wanting to align with talent and pop culture, gain relevancy in order to then, have a raise and have some big names and talent attached that they can raise more money. We kind of get them right before a Series A or a Series B. So that way we get them through that. When they raise the money, now they transfer over to FlyteVu agency because they have funds to pay us for marketing services. So it's also worth, understanding their growth plan, their strategy, where they are in that timeline. Is this the right time for them for these particular services that we offer? And make sure they're set up. We have incubator clients for a year. So we offer services for a year. After a year, then, either you go off on your own, we obviously still have equity, or you then retain FlyteVu as an agency and you pay our fees. We do offer a slight reduction on those fees if you came in through an incubator. But then there's still then there's cash exchanging hands for work.
I love how you structured it. It's very, very smart. And I don't see many times people structure it this well the first time. And so good job on that. I really like that you structure it for a year and then you move them up. So you're basically you're doing a lot of things. You're helping that community out. You're also only working with people that you can actually help. That's the other part that I don't want people to miss out on. And then the other part is it's setting your agency up. And you're picking the ones that are going to get funded or you believe in. Yeah. So it's clever.
Here's the other option that you have. You could just invest in a brand. You don't have to offer services. And so, I have invested in brands that we've worked with, but I haven't offered them services in exchange for equity. Like, I've paid for my equity because they weren't at the right, it wasn't at the right timeline, or I didn't feel they were going to need way more than what we could provide. in exchange for equity. So, you don't always have to exchange services. You can just pay to invest and ask for that opportunity too. And I think that's part of the decision is this the right client? Just like you said, like it has to be the right client. You can't take everyone. I want to help a lot of people. I'm by nature a helper. So it's really hard, but I also like to think how can I help them best? And it's not one size fits all.
How are you advertising the incubator?
I'm not because I don't want a lot of outreach. I think strategically we haven't talked a lot about it. We probably will put out I would say a press release or put out more about it at the end of the year. I waited to do that specifically because I wanted to show what we've done for the first incubator client. And this year we have some pretty exciting announcements that are getting ready to be made public. They'll make those announcements first, and then we can talk about what we've done. So that will end up happening later this year. But I know how it goes. I know you start to get hit up from a lot of different companies, and I wasn't at that time. I said again, we're only taking one, so I wasn't open to taking anymore. But now we've started to have a few more conversations about who's next, and I think word of mouth gets around really, really quickly. So we haven't had to go out there and ask around.
As you scale it up, are you going to create your own team for this particular incubator rather than sharing it with the rest of the agency?
On the account side, yes. On the services side, no, because the services are the same, right? The same way you would do press for a brand is the same way you would run the press strategy for an incubator client. So press, talent and influencer, creative production, all of my shared services can still support incubator clients. But the account team that's building the strategy for that client will be different because it does take a little bit of a different lens of how to help a startup grow versus an established corporate brand. So that will probably be the unique team that will be built.
And kind of one of the last questions I have for you is, it goes back to, how do you negotiate for your team of what they can buy in at a discount? Like, how do you figure that out?
Yeah, I do that on the upfront. So when I sign the contract with the incubator client of becoming part of our incubator, that's determined on the front end about what the buy-in will be, what the minimum buy-in will be.
Okay, good. So you guys set the valuation and all that. And so it's not like, oh, they're just telling you it at a discount, but it's really at.
And it's something that they can afford, but also something that the incubator can also work within their cap table. So, we decide that early on.
And are we talking about like 5,000, 10,000, 20,000? Is that around the number?
It's different for every incubator client because we've had a lot of conversations now. If I'm going to offer it to my staff, knowing where my staff are, it's less than 5. And it's something that, they can afford and isn't going to be a stretch. We have to be careful. Like, we can't be financial advisors. Mm-hmm. It's actually, I think, illegal. So all we do is we introduce them to the CEO of the startup, and the CEO has those conversations direct with my staff, has the presentation. And if they want to sign up, they do that directly through the CFO or CEO of the startup. We don't get involved in that. We don't broker that. I don't know what each person invests or doesn't invest. I don't want to know. That's confidential, but it is just an opportunity and, an open door and a conversation that we facilitate.
I love it. I've never heard of anybody doing that. So I think it's really clever. We're all about, building assets and showing people how to turn their agency into an asset. And this is just another step. So I applaud you for that. This has all been amazing. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think the listeners would find valuable?
No, you did a really good job of asking all the right questions and a lot of the things that we've figured out along the way. I'll just say, start small. You don't have to dive in a big way. I mean, a lot of these startups, need a phone call a month or just need some advice, and founders will do anything to get it because they don't have the connections that we have. And so a lot of it is at the very beginning, a lot of the calls I've had are just making connections for people who are investors that might make sense, or, they're looking for a specific position. Oh, I know somebody that can help them. And a lot of the hours are spent just advising, just making connections and sharing just experience. So it's not hard, right? I think some of the legalities and some of the things that we went through at the very beginning, we were trying to figure out how to structure this. Like that does take a lot of work, but now that we have the framework, it's working, and I'm really proud that it's helping not only our clients but our staff. And again, these brands are putting greatness into the world, so it's fun to be a part of it.
Awesome. What's the agency website people can go and check you guys out?
Yeah, it's FlyteVu.com. That's spelled FlyteVu.com. We're not a flight school. That's the first question that we ask. We are an agency, so check us out.
I had the same issue with my first agency. It was called Solar Velocity. So everyone would call me up and say, "Hey, can you install solar panels?" I'm like, how'd you find us? Oh, from the website. Like, did you actually read the website? Like,
well, it's funny, when at the very beginning people would call us, looking for flight lessons. And my first question was, well, how much? Because I'll figure it out. I don't know what you're willing to pay, but we need cash. So.
And then what you should say is do you want a training on taking off or landing? Yeah. Like it's a different price. Yeah. If you want to land, that's a lot more. It's easy taking off. So. Cool. Really well, awesome. Well, everyone go check out the website. Laura, thanks so much for coming on the show. And if you guys enjoyed the episode, make sure you like and subscribe it. And if you guys want to create more predictability, more freedom, really turn your agency into an asset, make sure you guys go to agencymastery360.com. Check out the resources we have for agency owners that want to scale faster and create those things so you can get rid of that stress and have more time for really cool stuff. So go there now. And until next time, have a swank day.